So you're looking at a picture of Janet Jackson right now. And if you notice, she is literally standing on a pedestal. This picture is from about 20 years ago, and this is how she started her opening number for her tour in 2001. Literally standing on a pedestal before all of her subjects. Now, I only came to notice this a couple of months ago, after having the experience of meeting her for the second time in May of this year. I don't begrudge Janet Jackson for standing on a pedestal in front of all of her fans and all of her subjects. That's her right. She is, after all, her own God. But it kind of made me think, if she's her own God, on her own pedestal, literally, why does she need to be my idol? And more importantly, why do I need to have her on a pedestal when I'm God too? Now, since I was a little boy of about 8 years old, I've been a huge fan of Janet Jackson, her brother Michael, and her entire family. They've inspired me to be a songwriter just like them. I work in the record business just like them. I even have a Grammy, just like she and her brother Michael. So literally, I sit in the same company as them. Though my success, my biggest success, is made in part by them, I am my own person, and she and her brother are their own persons. So why would I literally sit at their feet and look up to them? Now, don't get me wrong, still a fan, still love what they do. They're very talented people, and I give credit where credit is due. I probably wouldn't be a songwriter without Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson and the entire Jackson family. Now, that said, my second meeting with Janet Jackson was altogether different from my first one 12 years ago. Now, just a small recap. When I was a little boy of 12 years old, I went around and I told my 6th grade class that I'd met Janet Jackson, even though I hadn't. That was in 1990. In 2011, that creation was made real, and I met Janet Jackson in Atlanta, Georgia, on March the 29th, 2011. I actually won a contest to where I got to go to her concert for free. I got backstage passes for free. So a friend of mine and I traveled to Atlanta, met Janet face to face. I was completely captivated by her. I am physically much larger than her, but she felt so much larger than me that first time. I felt very small standing next to her. Now, this time around, I was gifted a VIP package for Janet's Together Again tour from a music business executive associate of mine. Okay, so as you can clearly see, the spell of creation that I cast at 12 years old of meeting her is still working. Met her in 2011, met her again in May of this year for absolutely free. Both of these occurrences of meeting her came to me at no cost to me. So I had great seats, 3rd row center on the floor. But when Janet took the stage this time, I wasn't mesmerized by her the way I've been for the last, 9 or 10 times that I've seen her live in concert. For some reason, I kept looking at the distance of the stage from my seat, kind of measuring, thinking to myself, I'm not that far away from the stage. I kept thinking I could just walk a few feet and I would be on the stage. And with that, I started to think, she's really not that much different from me. She's not that far away from me in distance, literally. And even before the show, I was looking at all of the staging, the speakers, how the stage was put together, all of the people that were there. And I kept imagining myself on the stage. This is prior to the show. I walked through the entire arena and I took pictures. I took the pictures you're looking at right now. And I kept thinking to myself, what would it be like if every person in this arena was here to see me? Not begrudging Janet Jackson or being jealous of her success or anything like that. I just really took the time to think, what if that were my stage? Also, prior to the show, I was in the VIP lounge. They had food, they had alcoholic beverages, and there were lots of other fans there. And there was an air of excitement so palatable, you could cut it with a knife from all of those people in that room. They were so excited. They'd paid upwards of $2,000 each for this VIP package and to meet Janet after the show. Somehow in conversation, it came up that I'd met Janet before and that this would be my second time meeting her. Everyone in the VIP rushed over to me and asked me what was it like? What did it feel like? What could they expect later on that night? And I remember thinking, well, it was a nice experience and she's a very nice person. But I thought to myself, wow, these guys are like really, really excited to meet another person. I kept thinking that. Janet is merely just another person, right? I mean, these guys were acting like complete groupies, and I was just watching them in amazement. I couldn't believe how excited they were. So after the show, we're waiting in this long corridor, waiting to get to the backstage area to have our picture taken with Janet. And at this point, it's dead silence because everybody is so nervous, it seems. Everyone's just kind of keeping quiet and waiting for their opportunity to touch the proverbial garment of Janet Jackson. One of Janet's team members comes out and says, "You guys shouldn't be so serious. You're about to meet Janet. It's going to be so great." Now, this team member comes directly over to me for some reason, and she says, "Aren't you excited?" And I said, yeah, I'm happy to be here. And she looked at me like, "That's odd. Why are you acting like that? Why aren't you nervous like everyone else? And why aren't you excited?" That's the look that I saw in her face. So what you're watching right now is inside of the actual room where Janet is. She's actually behind the petition that you see to the right. And while I'm filming, I'm not really anticipating anything for some reason. And all the while I'm wondering, why do I feel like this? So I get behind the petition. I see Janet standing there, and meeting her this time was completely different. She looked just like any other person to me. There wasn't some aura or some glow around her. She looked very beautiful, as she always does. She was sweet and kind, the way I remember she was the first time. But this time, I saw Janet Jackson with my God eyes, and I realized who she is and what she has and what she does. It's no different from me. The first time I met her, she looked like a painted doll to me. She looked perfect to me. This time, meeting Janet Jackson, I wasn't standing in her shoes, and I wasn't standing on her shoulders. I was standing next to her as a God. And she's just like me. She is literally no different from me. I showed her a picture of my Grammy Award on my phone. She looked at my phone and she blinked and she said, "Who are you? What's your name again?" She also said, "I've never heard of you." She went on to ask me who did I write for, and I told her that I was pretty much a freelance songwriter and that I don't necessarily write for anyone. She congratulated me on my Grammy win and said it was nice to meet me, and asked me a few other things about the kind of music that I wrote, and that was pretty much it. When I tell you guys, I have been the biggest Janet Jackson fan ever for like my entire life. But now that I know who I am, I've taken her off the pedestal, and I've decided to stand on it myself. I don't think it's healthy to have an idol when you are God. The teachings of Neville Goddard have taught me so much about myself and what I'm capable of and what I can do. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not aware of any God that sits at the feet of anyone and looks up to them. Again, I still love Janet, I still credit Janet, but she's no longer my idol, and she's no longer on a pedestal where I'm concerned, because I stand on my own pedestal as my own God. There's absolutely nothing that she can do that I can't do, including literally sitting in the company of her with my own Grammy Award. Okay, there's one other thing that I have to add that happened that was so weird. As I was sitting in my seat waiting for the show to start, there was a couple behind me, and they tapped me on my shoulder, and they simply asked me, "Who are you?" And I just told them my first name, and they were like, "No, we mean, who are you? We know that you're somebody." And I responded, "Well, what do you mean somebody?" They said, "We know that you are somebody. We can't figure out who you are. We've been trying to figure it out, but we know that you are somebody." Now, I am not a famous person. Where I live, I know a lot of people in the industry, but people don't know me by sight like that. So I just said, "Well, I'm just here to enjoy the show like everybody else." They said, "What do you do?" And I told them, "Well, I'm a songwriter." And they said, "Have you met Janet Jackson before?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." And they said, "See, we knew that you were somebody. Stop trying to pretend like you're just a regular person." That's what they said to me. So after the meet and greet, myself and other concert goers were just standing outside of the venue. The same couple came up behind me and they said, "Well, what are you doing standing out here? Celebrities don't stand out here with regular people." And I told them, I'm not a celebrity. And another person who had asked to follow me on Instagram saw on my Instagram that there's a picture of my Grammy Award. And that girl yelled out, "Yes, he is. He has a Grammy." And then the couple said to me again, "We knew that you were somebody. Why are you lying about it? Why don't you just admit who you are?" Then they got mad at me and said, "Well, regular people don't get comp tickets to meet Janet Jackson and have Grammys." And the lady was just like, "I can't stand celebrities. They always think that they're better than everybody else." Then the 5 or 6 other people who were standing outside just talking to me and I was talking to them said, "Oh yeah, we kind of knew that you were somebody too. You look like you're somebody." I'm like, "What do you mean I look like I'm somebody?" They told me, "You look like you work in this industry. We already knew that. We knew you just weren't a regular person," they said. Now, it was at that exact moment where I realized that standing on my own pedestal in my own mind just for that one night had started to create and started to work already. The moral of this story is stand on your own pedestal. Don't ever love anything or anyone so much to where you make them your God. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye, everybody.